We had about 10 total defenses on Week 15 fantasy football get over 10 fantasy points in this particular week. Why is that? Because when defense is done correctly, it makes or breaks the week in fantasy football. And now that everybody's in the fantasy football playoffs at this point, first of all, if you made it, congratulations for making it. Second of all, every point matters and everything is amplified in fantasy football now. And I do this every week. We're going through the top 12 defense rankings for Week 16 fantasy football. I am doing everything I can to get you guys ready for Week 16 fantasy football. And I'm one of the only YouTubers who does defense rankings on a consistent weekly basis. So please go down there, drop a like on the video, and subscribe to the channel to show your support. Let's go ahead and dive right into this right now. So this first tier, they're going to be highlighted because the Bills are just, I think, a smash freaking play this week. Against the Los Angeles Chargers in Los Angeles. Listen, the Raiders defense, I had ranked as number 4 last week. And I got questions as to why they were that highly ranked. And I said, this Chargers team is a mess. They don't want to play for Brandon Staley, who is now fired. And without Justin Herbert, they're nothing. And especially without Keenan Allen, they're nothing. Well, it turned out to be the best defense of the week. I'm not saying that to say that I'm just a defensive maven. That's not the point of saying that. The point of saying that is that the Chargers, I don't see much changing here this week. Yes, they're taking on a possibly stronger Chargers offense because of the addition of probably Keenan Allen and the addition by subtraction of Brandon Staley. But look at what the Bills defense did last week against Dallas. Held them to 10 points. One of the hottest offenses in all of football. Held them to 10 points, and they would have had 3 if it wasn't for a garbage time touchdown. The Bills defense is firing in all cylinders. They get after your quarterback at 3.5 sacks per game almost. They're causing turnovers. 9 fantasy points per game practically. The Bills defense is a frigging smash play this week. At number 2, I've got the Bears defense. Yes, I love the Bears, and all of you do too. Because in my top 12 playoff ranking videos for defenses, I was given a lot of flack for why they were not inside the top 12. Not only am I addressing why they were not in my top 12 right now, but they're playing the Cardinals today. The reason they were not in my top 12 is because I said I can't fully buy in on this defense quite yet. They have done very well the past 3 weeks now. They've been excellent, actually, in fantasy football for about 4 weeks now. The Bears defense is, ever since they got Montez Sweat, has changed their defense. They're getting after the quarterback like they haven't been all year. They're at 1.79 sacks per game. That's closer, the past several games, around 3 to 4 sacks. The Bears defense has changed since the addition of Montez Sweat. A lot of forced errors have forced 1.3 interceptions per game. Against the Cardinals, give me this defense all day. Now, as far as where they could be ranked in the playoffs, I'll tell you what, they're already about to move up. And those of you who are on Patreon will see an updated defense rankings for the fantasy playoffs here in the next 24 to 48 hours. You will see the Bears move up. If you're interested, Patreon link in the comments below. Check out the tiers right now. Not going to turn this into too promotional. At number 3, the Broncos defense. I love the Broncos this week. Taking on the New England Patriots at home on Christmas Eve. So here's the thing. The Broncos defense is in a situation where they're just coming off a massive beatdown. I mean, they got absolutely taken behind the woodshed by the Detroit Lions in Detroit. That's the thing. It's in Detroit, and it's a much better organization, maybe history-wise, but as far as today, the Lions are way better than the Patriots. Now, the Patriots actually have shown some signs of life the past 2 weeks. I will give them that. But the Broncos defense, they're still competing for playoffs. The Patriots have nothing to compete for besides Bill Belichick's pride at this point. So I'm not expecting the Patriots to just roll over, which is why they're here at number 3. But I do expect them to be a very high upside defense due to all the sacks they can get, the turnovers that they can get, how well they've been playing defensively for the most part over the past 2 months. Broncos defense at number 3. At number 4, the Indianapolis Colts going to Atlanta to take on the Falcons. Listen, the Colts defense they really need no introduction. Like, if you've been watching this channel for most of the season, first of all, I appreciate you being here. But second of all, you know how I feel about the Colts defense. They've been inside the top 5 for literally most of the season. They have been a great defense in fantasy for most of the season. 9.5 fantasy points per game. Almost 3.5 sacks per game. 2 turnovers per game practically. The Colts defense is great. And you know what else? The Atlanta Falcons just not only floundered again on offense, but they lost. To who? The Carolina Panthers in week 15. This offense stinks. They stink. And they have a lot of talent. And that's the really shameful part on Arthur Smith. So maybe Atlanta comes back out here, shows a lot more signs of life. Bijan Robinson has over 100 scrimmage yards and 2 touchdowns. Very well could happen. But you know what else could happen? Exactly what we saw last week. And based on how opportunistic this Colts defense is, give me them at number 4 all day. The Seattle Seahawks defense at number 5 this week. The Seattle Seahawks not only played pretty decently well against the Eagles, they're taking on the Tennessee Titans this week. The Seahawks defense in Tennessee is, to me, a great play as well. Now, the thing that we have to address with the Seahawks matchup here is that Tennessee may very well be without Will Levis. He left that game against Houston with an ankle injury. And they're saying right now he's kind of day-to-day. It's sore. We'll see what happens. What's going to happen is you're either going to see Tannehill or Malik Willis. Do you think they're going to put up more than 14 points? I don't. The Seahawks just got a big win, emotional primetime victory, and this is an emotion-driven team with Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll's defense has not been atrocious this year. They have of late, but this year, 3 sacks per game. At the beginning of the season, they were really good in fantasy. Maybe they get hot at the right time. Either way, I don't trust them, but I do trust the matchup right here. Just like I trust this next matchup. Cincinnati Bengals at number 6, taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers in Pittsburgh. I simply just trust this matchup. So here's one of 2 things going to happen. This week, it's either going to be Mason Rudolph. Mike Tomlin announced that. It will either be Mason Rudolph or it's going to be Kenny Pickett. I don't know which way it's going to happen. I would bet that it's going to be Rudolph, though. I have a feeling it's going to be Rudolph. Now, do I think that Rudolph is going to be much better than Mitch Trubisky? I don't think he could be worse. Do I think he's going to be 2 times as good? I'm not going to say that. He's not going to be worse, though. But either way, this offense can't get anything going. And as I said on Monday night, what I got right, what I got wrong live stream, I don't think this team is really into it right now. I think Tomlin's starting to lose his locker room a little bit. I may be wrong. They may come out and have a good performance. But based on the way they played the last 3 weeks, give me the Bengals defense because they're averaging almost 3 sacks per game, averaging over a pick per game. Give me that defense against a horrific Pittsburgh Steelers offense. The Cleveland Browns at number 7. And their matchup is tough. At Houston this week against the Texans. So not only did the Texans win last week against a divisional opponent with Case Keenum, they may get CJ Stroud back. Now, before I started filming this, I did see that CJ Stroud is still dealing with concussion issues. So he may or may not play this week. And Nico Collins, by the way, no guarantee he plays either. So this offense may look very similar. But you know what the difference is? Tennessee's defense is not good. They had a good fantasy week because they played a bad Texans offense. But this Cleveland Browns defense, if we're putting them in the same category as Tennessee, we're not doing our homework. We're not watching football. The Cleveland Browns defense is tremendous. They just almost lost to the Bears this past weekend, and they still had a great fantasy game. Why? Because they make things happen. 9 fantasy points per game, 3 sacks per game, almost 2 turnovers per game. This Browns defense is excellent. Give me the Browns, especially if they don't have CJ Stroud. But even if they do, I'll take them here at number 7. The Dallas Cowboys defense here at number 8. At home, in Miami, taking on the Dolphins. It goes back to my rule on the Cowboys that I've said for a month now. When there is nobody behind them is as good of a defense or doesn't have the matchup. So when I have a situation like this where I'm in a little bit of a predicament, and I've got Dallas coming in pissed because of the embarrassment they just suffered, I'll take Dallas' defense this week. And I've said this for a long time as well. I actually think they match up well against the Dolphins. The Dolphins, by numbers, they're an elite offense. They're first in passing yards, first in rushing yards. Like, they do everything great, right? The thing about the Dolphins, though, is they don't do well against physical football teams. This is where watching gets really important to me, because you look at the teams they've lost to this year. They've matched them in physicality. Buffalo, Kansas City, Philadelphia, Tennessee, they all matched them in physicality. That's their problem. Dallas is going to come in physical in this game. So it's a shot to take. It's a risky play, but it's high upside, I do believe. The Green Bay Packers at number 9. Don't get too excited. I'm talking to Packers players if you're watching this, because the only reason you're here is because you're taking on the Panthers. That's the only reason. Look at what their numbers are. 2.5 sacks per game. Not bad, but not great. Not even a turnover per game, basically, and 6.6 fantasy points per game. Several weeks back when I gave you guys an updated defense playoff ranking video before this last one, I got a lot of flack for not having the Packers in. I think the last couple weeks have proved why they're not in. They're just not a good fantasy defense. They're here because they play the Panthers, and I'll leave it at that. But I want to make this very clear. I would play the Cowboys defense over the Packers defense. The Philadelphia Eagles at number 10. And the Eagles this week, man, they're playing the Giants, and it's very similar to the Packers, actually. I mean, they're actually worse in a lot of fronts than the Packers. The Eagles, when you watch them play, first of all, they don't look like they're very talented on the back end. Their secondary stinks. Their front seven is the good part, right? And that's what I think matches up well against the Giants. The Giants have a weak front. They have a weak offensive line right now. I think they match up well against the Giants here. So the Giants are obviously unstable as can be offensively. And I think that additionally, the matchup here against the offensive line is going to be what's going to be the Giants' downfall this week. I'll have the Eagles at 10 here. The Saints at 11. The Saints have 2 straight good weeks they're working with, and they're taking on the Rams in Los Angeles. Not a great matchup. Not acting like it's great. The Saints defense the past couple of weeks, though, over 15 fantasy points, depending on your format. Like, the Saints defense has come back to life. Nothing on the screen is impressive aside from their fantasy points per game. Why is it impressive if none of their other numbers add up? Well, it's because they don't let up much. They're not really a team that's going to let you get, 30 points on them most of the time. They do sometimes. The Rams are firing in all cylinders, but Matt Stafford is prone to throwing picks and turning the ball over. So if the Saints pass rush can get after them, get some coverage sacks, I like the Saints defense at 11. And I got the 49ers defense at 12 against the Ravens. Matchup, obviously not good. We're talking about the number 1 team in each conference right here. Must win for both of them. Both physical football teams. First of all, I cannot wait to watch this game. I can't wait. I've got 49ers here at number 12 because I think that they're just like, nothing numbers wise, when you stack the 2 teams up, gives me an advantage on either side. I mean, they're both very evenly matched as far as numbers go. They're very much run similarly. But what really gets me is the momentum the 49ers have. They've got tremendous momentum. They're steamrolling everybody. You could argue they haven't played an opponent on the level of San Francisco. I'd come right back at you and say that the Eagles a couple weeks ago were kind of close to that level, if not on that level. So the Baltimore Ravens, I expect the 49ers to win, but I don't expect the 49ers to have a lot of upside, but I do think that their floor at this point is not very low. And as I do at the end of every single defense ranking video, I give you guys my favorite defense to pick up in advance for next week if you have the roster space to do it. And I gotta be honest here, this was a tough week to do it because there's a lot of bad defenses with great matchups, and a lot of the great defenses have not so great matchups and are already rostered at this point. We're this deep into the fantasy season. You just have to take shots if you're playing the waiver wire. The shot I'll take is the Jags defense. And it's obvious they're playing the Panthers, and it's in Jacksonville. Now, Jacksonville is not exactly in the best spot as a team right now either. I don't think that their offense is running well, and it won't without Christian Kirk and without Zay Jones now. But this defense has been even worse. I mean, it's been atrociously bad. The only thing that reels me in with them is the fact that they're playing the Panthers. Let's not sugarcoat it. There's no more deep analysis on this one. If you need to play the waiver wire next week, the team I suggest you do it with is with the Jacksonville Jaguars. So let me know what you think of the rankings in the comments below and what questions you need answered for Week 16 fantasy football. And if you want to see the top 30 wide receiver rankings for Week 16 fantasy football, click on this video right here.